How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome to the Geekritique show. My name is Dakota. Slow news day, short video, not a lot going on. Unless you count Spider-Man being back in the MCU as important news, which I certainly do, and I'm sure many of you who are watching this certainly do. So a lot is happening right now, as has been announced by Variety. They broke the scoop that Marvel Studios and Sony Columbia Picture have renegotiated their Spider-Man deal to place Tom Holland Spider-Man back into the MCU for at least another solo film and a glorified cameo appearance at some point, whether that be in an Avengers type movie or kind of like the Hulk was in the Thor Ragnarok film. We don't really know how that's going to fit yet. But wow, I am so excited. This is probably the best news I could have had today. I wasn't having a terrible day, until I had to work an extra 3.5 hours for no reason at work. That almost put me in a terrible mood. But then I remembered, they renegotiated Spider-Man. It all worked out in the end. Well, almost worked out. I think ultimately you'll find that this deal will be a win-win for not just Marvel Studios, but for Sony and their Spider-Verse as well. We'll get into that in a short bit. If you guys are about to ask me where the MCU Timeline version 6 is, you get a little bit of a tease at the end of this video, so stick around for that. But so let's break down the news of what's happening with Spider-Man. So in July of 2021, we'll have a third Spider-Man film featuring Tom Holland and Zendaya and that cast of characters that they've introduced in Homecoming and Far From Home. When it was announced about a month ago that Spider-Man was no longer in the MCU, that Sony was pulling him out so that they can inject him into their Spider-Verse films for some background negotiations that we weren't truly privy to, because ultimately we're never going to be totally privileged to know all of the dirty details that go on with the filmmaking industry. And there are a lot of them. I didn't really like how Sony and Marvel handled it. It almost seemed like they were giving away too much information to the fans, and I would have rather there have not been as much information because it made both parties look bad, in my opinion. I think Sony thought that they would villainize Marvel and Disney a little bit, so as to, leverage some more arm power in this negotiation, this trade deal. And that made Disney look temporarily pretty bad. A lot of people were saying that Disney was at fault here. But then more news was coming out that Sony wasn't really negotiating anything. They didn't say yes to any of the terms that Disney was offering them, even going so far as to, ignore them for about 6 months. Now, we don't know if this is all 100% true, but either way, it made both companies look a little bit less professional. And I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I am happy that they have renegotiated this deal. But it comes at some cost, and we'll discuss that in a bit. So allegedly, Marvel Studios will be footing about 25% of the production cost of these films going forward, which, makes a lot of sense, just because they're so involved in the production. It's not just pretty much it was just Kevin Feige helping them steer the course, and Sony was paying the entire budget previously. So it looks good on Disney's part here that they are willing to help out with the cost of this. So some good faith on their end. And this also looks good on Sony's end because Marvel will now be getting about 25% of the gross income that the films will make, which looks good on paper because 25% is more than the 5% that they were previously getting. But that was 5% off the first dollar gross. Now, what that means is you have to break it down a little bit. And what that means is basically movie studios don't make exact, like if a film makes $1 billion, the studio's probably going to get about 400,000 of that, including both domestic and international markets. Combined, you're going to get 40 to 45% of that. And the rest of that money will go to the movie theaters. With first dollar gross, Disney would have received about 5% of the literal first dollar gross before it was taxed, before it was sent and distributed to all these different movie theaters. So realistically, they were probably getting between 10 to 15% of the actual studio gross. with the 25% deal that they have now, it's not crazy amounts of money, but it is definitely going to alleviate some of the production costs that they are now trying to foot in. And obviously, Spider-Man is a huge character. It'll help the MCU in general. He's a very lovable character. Tom Holland is a very lovable actor. Everyone wants to see more of this kid in the MCU, and that's really awesome. And I'm so happy that we are going to be able to get some of that. Now, something that Kevin Feige said that I thought was pretty telling was probably something that was on the negotiating cards on Sony's end of the spectrum, that they definitely wanted Tom Holland in their Spider-Verse films going forward. And what Kevin Feige made very clear was that Spider-Man is now the only superhero who can cross cinematic universes. What does that mean? Well, obviously he's back in the MCU. That's what this whole video is about. But he is now in the SUMC, Sony Universe of Marvel Characters. I think that's what they're dubbing their universe now. The SUMC. So he can now be in both universes without there being some sort of canon connection beyond the actors and stuff involved. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of going to be very confusing going forward. You will see Tom Holland in some of the Sony films moving forward. I don't know how that's going to play out. Kevin Feige is definitely separating his Marvel Cinematic Universe from that Sony universe, as you can probably imagine why, just for, creative purposes and quality purposes. And that's his baby. So don't expect Venom or any of those other films, Morbius, Black Cat, Madam Web, to be in the MCU, because Feige will want them separate. So I think all of this is pretty good news. It's kind of exciting to actually be reporting that Spider-Man is back in the MCU. You don't know how much of a relief that is. So, all right. Before I go, I want to show you guys a little bit of what I've got going on for the MCU Chronological Timeline version 6. Here we have about 23 items. These are all films. This is the version 6 is going to be the film-only version of the MCU timeline. And version 6.5 will have films and TV shows, and there's about 64 items in total. And that's going to get crowded really quick, so stay tuned for that. If you can't wait to see those MCU timeline videos, I highly suggest at this point in the video to subscribe to our channel, like it, hit the bell notification, and all that jazz so that YouTube will start recommending our videos to you so you don't miss a beat. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Are you excited about Spider-Man being back in the MCU? I think this is a win-win for both the Marvel Studios fans and the SUMC fans. I gotta get used to saying that. SUMC. Yeah, so it's good for the SUMC fans as well. I think the biggest winner in all of this is going to be Tom Holland's bank account. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a good one.